In 360 BCE, the Greek philosopher Plato described a civilization so advanced it seemed impossible. A vast island empire with technology beyond its time, ringed by enormous walls of bronze and gold. And then, in a single catastrophic day, it vanished beneath the waves. For over 2,000 years, explorers, scientists, and treasure hunters have searched for one answer. Did Atlantis actually exist? And if it did, where does it lie today? The story of Atlantis begins with a single source. Around 360 BCE, the ancient Greek philosopher Plato wrote two dialogues, Timaeus and Critias, describing an island civilization of extraordinary power and wealth. According to Plato, an Egyptian priest had told the story to Solon, a famous Athenian lawmaker during his travels to Egypt. The priest claimed this empire existed 9,000 years before Solon's time, placing Atlantis around 9,600 BCE. Plato described a land protected by the sea god Poseidon, with magnificent architecture, advanced engineering, and vast military might. But he also wrote of its destruction. In a single day and night, violent earthquakes and floods consumed the island, and it disappeared into the depths of the sea. The question that has haunted scholars ever since is simple, yet profound. Was Plato describing a real place that once existed, or was Atlantis merely a philosophical allegory, a story crafted to illustrate his ideas about power, morality, and the fall of civilizations? To understand the mystery of Atlantis, we must first understand Plato himself. He lived in Athens during the 4th century BCE, a time when Greek city-states were grappling with questions of power, democracy, and the nature of ideal societies. Plato was not a historian in the modern sense. He was a philosopher who used stories to explore complex ideas about justice, governance, and human nature. This raises an important question. When Plato wrote about Atlantis, was he recording actual history passed down through generations, or was he creating a cautionary tale? Many scholars believe Atlantis was an allegory, a fictional civilization designed to contrast with Athens. In Plato's account, Atlantis begins as a noble society, but gradually becomes corrupted by greed and ambition. The gods punish this moral decay with total destruction. Yet, Plato himself insisted the story was true. He wrote that it was not a fiction, but a genuine account. This contradiction has fueled debate for over 2 millennia. Even in ancient times, philosophers disagreed. Some of Plato's own students believed the story, while others dismissed it as pure invention. The search for truth begins here, in this ancient uncertainty. So what actual evidence exists for Atlantis? The answer is both simple and frustrating. We have Plato's writings and virtually nothing else. No Egyptian records have been found that mention Atlantis. No archaeological artifacts have been definitively linked to this lost civilization. No ruins matching Plato's description have been discovered on any ocean floor. This absence of physical evidence has led most historians and scientists to conclude that Atlantis never existed as a real place. Yet Plato provided remarkably specific details. He described the island's size as larger than Libya and Asia Minor combined. He wrote of 3 concentric rings of water surrounding a central island, connected by bridges and tunnels. He mentioned specific resources, red, white, and black stone quarried from the island itself. He even described the metallurgy, including a mysterious metal called orichalcum that was said to gleam like fire. Some researchers point to these precise details as evidence that Plato must have been describing something real. Others argue that this specificity is exactly what you would expect from a skilled storyteller crafting a convincing fictional world. The evidence, or lack thereof, leaves us at an impasse. Without physical proof, we cannot confirm Atlantis existed. But without exploring every theory, we cannot definitively say it did not. The most literal interpretation of Plato's account places Atlantis exactly where he said it was, in the Atlantic Ocean beyond the Pillars of Hercules, what we now call the Strait of Gibraltar. In the late 19th century, American writer Ignatius Donnelly popularized this theory in his influential book, Atlantis, the Antediluvian World. Donnelly argued that a vast continent once existed in the mid-Atlantic, and that when it sank, survivors fled to both sides of the ocean, explaining similarities between ancient cultures in Europe, Africa, and the Americas. He pointed to the Azores Islands as mountain peaks of this lost continent, still visible above the waves. For decades, this theory captured public imagination. It seemed to explain so much. Why do flood myths appear in cultures around the world? Why do pyramids exist in both Egypt and Central America? Could these all be remnants of Atlantean knowledge spread by refugees? However, modern geology has thoroughly debunked this theory. The study of plate tectonics, developed in the 20th century, shows that continents do not simply sink into oceans. The Atlantic Ocean floor is spreading, not contracting. Core samples from the ocean bed show no evidence of a sunken landmass. The Azores are volcanic islands formed by tectonic activity, not mountain peaks of a drowned continent. While this theory respects Plato's geographical description, it conflicts with everything we know about how Earth's geology actually works. Perhaps the most scientifically compelling theory links Atlantis to a real catastrophe that destroyed a real civilization. Around 1600 BCE, a massive volcanic eruption devastated the island of Thera, now known as Santorini, in the Aegean Sea. This eruption was one of the largest in human history, ejecting an estimated 10 million tons of rock, ash, and gas into the atmosphere. The explosion triggered tsunamis that reached heights of over 40 meters, tall enough to devastate coastal settlements across the Mediterranean. The primary victim of this disaster was the Minoan civilization on nearby Crete. The Minoans were Europe's first great civilization, with advanced architecture, sophisticated art, and the earliest known written language in Europe, Linear A. At the height of their power, the Minoans built magnificent palaces, constructed paved roads, and controlled extensive trade networks across the Mediterranean. Then, suddenly, they vanished from history. Many scholars believe the Thera eruption either directly destroyed Minoan cities or weakened them enough that they fell to invaders from mainland Greece. Could this real disaster have inspired Plato's story? The parallels are striking. An advanced island civilization destroyed by volcanic activity and floods. A society that disappeared seemingly overnight. There are problems with this theory, however. The timeline does not match. Plato placed Atlantis' destruction around 9600 BCE, but the Thera eruption occurred around 1600 BCE, a difference of 8,000 years. Additionally, Plato specifically stated Atlantis was in the Atlantic Ocean, beyond the Pillars of Hercules, not in the Mediterranean. Supporters of this theory argue that Plato, or the Egyptian sources he claimed to reference, may have gotten the date wrong, or that the numbers were mistranslated over centuries of oral tradition. Over the centuries, researchers have proposed dozens of other locations for Atlantis, each with its own supporting arguments. Some place Atlantis in southern Spain, near the ancient civilization of Tartessos. This wealthy trading culture flourished beyond the Strait of Gibraltar and mysteriously disappeared around the 6th century BCE. Geological surveys have identified unusual formations in marshlands near Cadiz that some interpret as remnants of circular harbor structures matching Plato's description. Others suggest Antarctica, proposing that the continent once sat in a more temperate location before shifting to its current polar position. This theory relies on now discredited ideas about crustal displacement. The Caribbean has its proponents too, with some pointing to underwater formations near Bimini as evidence of man-made structures, though geologists have identified these as natural beach rock formations. Ireland, the North Sea, Malta, Cyprus, and even locations in Turkey and Bolivia have all been suggested. Each theory typically focuses on one or two aspects of Plato's description, while ignoring others that do not fit. A common pattern emerges. Researchers identify ruins or geological features from their region of interest, then argue that Plato's measurements were exaggerated or his directions misunderstood. The search for Atlantis has become, in many ways, a mirror. Each culture sees in the legend a reflection of its own lost glory or ancient heritage. But this multiplicity of theories reveals a fundamental problem. If Atlantis could be anywhere, has it effectively become nowhere? When evidence can be selectively interpreted to support nearly any location, we move further from historical truth and closer to wishful thinking. So where does modern scholarship stand on Atlantis? The overwhelming consensus among historians, archaeologists, and geologists is clear. Atlantis, as Plato described it, never existed as a real place. Most scholars view the story as a philosophical allegory created by Plato to explore his ideas about ideal societies, moral corruption, and the consequences of hubris. The details in his account, the concentric rings, the advanced technology, the dramatic destruction, these were literary devices to make his philosophical arguments more compelling. Plato was known for using myths and stories to illustrate abstract concepts. The tale of Atlantis fits perfectly within this tradition. However, this does not mean the story has no basis in reality. Many researchers believe Plato may have drawn inspiration from real historical events. The Minoan civilization's collapse, memories of ancient Mediterranean cultures, or stories of coastal cities lost to earthquakes and tsunamis. Ancient peoples witnessed volcanic eruptions, devastating floods, and the sudden disappearance of settlements. These real disasters would have been passed down through oral traditions, potentially reaching Plato centuries later in altered form. Modern technology has allowed researchers to explore this question in new ways. Sonar mapping has surveyed vast areas of ocean floor. Satellite imagery can detect submerged structures. Advanced dating techniques can pinpoint when ancient sites were abandoned. Despite all these tools, no evidence of Atlantis has emerged. Ocean explorer Robert Ballard, who discovered the wreck of the Titanic, has stated that while catastrophic floods and volcanic events certainly occurred throughout history, no credible evidence links any of them to Plato's Atlantis. The scientific community remains open to evidence, but after more than 2,000 years of searching, the absence of physical proof speaks volumes. The mystery of Atlantis ultimately comes down to three possibilities. First, that Atlantis was exactly what Plato said it was, a real advanced civilization that sank beneath the Atlantic Ocean around 9,600 BCE. Modern geology makes this virtually impossible, as we know continents do not simply vanish into the sea. Second, that Atlantis was inspired by real events but transformed over time. The Minoan civilization destroyed by the Thera eruption, ancient Tartessos, or other lost cultures could have provided the seed for the legend. Plato, or his sources, may have embellished these real disasters into a grander tale. Third, that Atlantis was purely fictional, a philosophical allegory created by Plato to explore ideas about power, morality, and the rise and fall of civilizations. This is the explanation most scholars accept today. What makes Atlantis so enduring is not the likelihood of its existence, but what it represents. The story speaks to universal human experiences, the fear of losing everything in a single catastrophic moment, the fascination with advanced ancient knowledge that has been lost to time, the hope that somewhere beneath the waves lies proof that great civilizations came before us. Perhaps the real lesson of Atlantis is not about finding a lost city, but about understanding ourselves. Every generation has searched for Atlantis in places that reflect their own time's fears and aspirations. The legend endures because it asks questions that remain relevant. How fragile are our own societies? What knowledge might we lose? What will future generations say about us? Whether Atlantis existed or not, the search for it has led to genuine archaeological discoveries, advances in underwater exploration, and deeper understanding of ancient civilizations that did exist. In that sense, the mystery has value beyond the answer. The search for Atlantis continues, driven not by certainty but by curiosity. While most evidence points to the legend being philosophical fiction or distant memory of real disasters, the absence of definitive proof means the debate remains open. New underwater surveys, advancing archaeological techniques, and fresh interpretations of ancient texts ensure that Atlantis will continue to fascinate researchers and dreamers alike. What do you think? Was Atlantis a real place waiting to be discovered, or has the mystery itself become more valuable than any answer we might find? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed exploring this ancient enigma, subscribe to Lost Chronicle Vault for more deep dives into history's greatest mysteries. From vanished civilizations to unexplained artifacts, we unlock the stories time tried to hide. Next, we will explore another mystery that has puzzled historians for generations. Until then, keep questioning, keep searching, and never stop wondering what secrets the past still holds.